Imagine this. A baby is born, family members gather to celebrate with joy, hope, and high expectations for a brighter future. Now imagine the birth of a nation, and imagine similar sentiments from its people. Its birth inspires optimism too, especially when it emerges from years of political conflict and racial division. This is the story of South Africa, whose defining moment came in 1994 with the end of apartheid and the dawn of democracy. The country was hailed as the new South Africa, and celebrated worldwide as the Rainbow Nation, symbolizing unity, reconciliation, and the promise of a better future for all. Much optimism greeted the new era. However, subsequent decades would paint a painful picture, relegating the excitement that had greeted the new nation's creation to a distant memory. Under the ANC, systems left by apartheid gradually collapsed, placing the country at the brink of a new label, a failed state. These have been the engine for the country's economic growth, thereby guaranteeing a bright future for the new nation. Perhaps the greatest attribute of the ANC's colossal failure leaned more on social factors than on political and economic factors. Throughout the decades, government incompetence led to the collapse of the state, thereby building back the tensions that had existed before 1994. In other words, the old wounds of apartheid were opened owing to resentment by the people of South Africa across races over the government's deliberate mishandling of several aspects of their lives. The results of this were the political differences and economic problems that followed afterwards. The 2024 elections demonstrated these frustrations. Whilst they did not eliminate them, they clearly showed how 60% of the 16.2 million voters rejected what was a political party they once considered to be their darling. Instead, the formation of the subsequent coalition government merely postponed the solutions to the problems faced by South Africans. Many people believed that the so-called Government of National Unity, GNU, would bring practical solutions to problems that had plagued the country for decades due to mismanagement, incompetence and corruption. However, it too is increasingly attracting criticism for doing little to change the status quo. High crime rates mostly in townships but also in urban centers, which have characterized much of post-apartheid South Africa and vary, including what is called cash-in-transit heists, that is, the hijacking of vehicles transporting cash to and from financial institutions and private businesses among other criminal activities have become quite common. Adding to the government's problems are high levels of corruption in state institutions, unemployment, frequent diplomatic debacles and social tensions in the townships that have on several occasions led to xenophobic and Afrophobic attacks on African immigrants. These and other problems have tainted the image of the ANC and destroyed whatever goodwill many had towards it when it assumed power in 1994. The June 2026 xenophobic attacks in South Africa, which have been organized by vigilante groups such as March and March, targeting illegal foreigners, have been the worst demonstration of hostility towards foreigners, especially those of African descent, since 1994, and have caused several diplomatic tensions between South Africa and the rest of Africa, with countries such as Ghana, Malawi, Nigeria, Uganda and Zimbabwe repatriating their nationals. As tensions boil over in South Africa, one ought to be mindful of the composition of South African society. South Africa is a multiracial society and race plays a crucial role in shaping the country's governance. The rising tensions in the country threaten to trigger racial tensions which had been suppressed before 1994 for the benefit of forging a united nation. Whilst before 1994, the country stood at the brink of anarchy because of racial divisions, today, it stands at the brink of anarchy because of irreconcilable differences among the black population underpinned by government ineptitude and what has been described as its open reluctance to resolve their plight. These differences are therefore the catalysts of the unrestricted violence which the CODESA negotiators were at pains to avoid before 1994. Where does this then place the country's future? It places it firmly at a political crossroad with critical questions yet to be answered. Should hope be pinned solely on political outcomes, or should alternatives be sought? Should systems be overhauled? Should punitive measures be pursued against those responsible for the 32 years of rapid decline? Those are the fundamental questions that linger concerning the South African situation. Pursuing a political solution will be long and elusive. The current political setup does not support a political outcome to the country's problems. None of the current political parties commands a large enough following to form government on its own. In fact, some have been projected to lose massive support in the next national elections scheduled for the year 2029. The current political trends indicate that the country is in for a series of coalition governments for at least the next 15 years because South African politics is fragmented along racial and ethnic lines, something many people are surprisingly blind to. In South Africa, displeasure towards whoever occupies the union buildings is often viewed through the lens of race first, before ethnicity and other considerations are made. This has become the trend especially among the black population, and it often sways how they vote. Therefore, reliance on politics alone will most likely condemn the country as opposed to saving it from the brink of disaster. So, what alternatives does the country have? The following alternatives for its future may be considered. The first is the idea of self-governance and separate development as was the case in the past. In such an instance, the country would have breakaway regions from the republic in order to form enclaves that are totally independent of the central government. This in fact is what some are agitating for and have in fact implemented, albeit at a minuscule scale. Orania, an exclusively white settlement in the Northern Cape province of South Africa, is a quintessential example of this. It has been developed to be entirely self-reliant with its own systems of government and has even invented its own currency called the Ora, which is pegged to the rand in value. Today, there are increasing calls for the Western Cape province to break away from the rest of South Africa due to displeasure with the administration in Pretoria, citing good governance and management as reasons. The other alternative will be to adopt a direct confrontational stance in order to save the republic and ultimately rebuild it from the ash heap of mismanagement, cronyism, patronage and political largesse. This view might be supported by the current complexities the country faces, which seem to have no foreseen end in sight. Unfortunately, none of these complexities have been directed towards the authorities in Pretoria in peaceful protest by those affected by it most, that is, black South Africans. A worrisome consequence of this lack of action is the government's inability to contain such acts, leaving a crucial question unanswered: who will be the next targeted group? You might as well also ask yourself the following equally important question. If displeasure is directed to black Africans today by black South Africans regardless of their immigration status, and their property looted without meaningful government intervention, how safe will the other races be, especially those that are increasingly portrayed as the possessors of wealth? What will a racial or tribal confrontation look like? And who will stop it today, as happened before 1994? This is the challenge facing the country today. Neither of the two options is easy, but they appear to be the only options for the future, unfortunately. Where violent confrontation is pursued, the flames of division might take long to be extinguished. However, this might be a necessary evil for the rebirth of the state, to those who believe in the sanctity of the state, as was seen elsewhere, for example in England following the English Civil War when Parliament and the monarchy clashed between 1642 and 1651, the French Revolution in 1789, and in the United States following the 1860s Civil War. The illusion of a united nation as matters currently stand can no longer be sustained. That was the old reality built on optimism for a journey that was new, a journey that begun in 1994. The journey has been undertaken and it has been measured already. Not in kilometers or miles, but in time. 32 years. The diagnosis has been made. The proverbial traveler is exhausted and sick, needing urgent treatment. Whatever the nature and cost of such treatment might be. This, unfortunately, is the new reality for South Africa.
Racist and a sellout. No dogs here. More racist and a sellout. Racist. My money, racist.
Corrective.